Thank you again all for coming to the fourth session of our Local Government Citizens Academy. This is a department, when we talk about public works, that for me is always cool. Which may sound a little strange, but they do all this invisible work when we aren't really paying attention. And it's really critical to how our city functions. When you think about, when you get up in the course of your day and you walk outside of your house and you go to work, you go to church, or you go to the grocery store, it requires infrastructure, right? Whether it's from a water, sewer, or from a street perspective. It's how a city functions. And the gentlemen tonight that we're going to have speak are masters in their domain. First up.
Don't make it any more nerve-wracking.
Oh, no. Don't worry, they grill every presenter. So Brian Hensel is our streets department supervisor. Do I have that right? Or deputy? No, I mean, we have new titles.
Close enough,
All
yes.
right.
I'll go into it briefly.
Good. And Gwen and I had the pleasure a couple months ago of being able to go for a ride along with him and visit different wards and see, good versions of streets and others that we all know probably have a few potholes. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Heather. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I have a fairly deep voice, if you didn't notice. I don't like to use microphones and I don't like to stand at podiums. I hope that's okay. If I wander around and see if you're awake paying attention, don't worry. If any of you'd like to stand up during my presentation, also feel free. I know how it is to sit there for too long. So, as Heather said, my name is Brian Hensel. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director for Streets. That's quite a mouthful. I've only been able to say it correctly for the last couple of weeks. I was formerly the street superintendent for the city of Missoula streets. Some of you may have ran across this at different times for 18 years. This would have been my 19th summer in June had I not been promoted to this position. So let's get rolling here. Streets division now, and also why I have a different title, is you see our public works director is still our boss. I think Jeremy's here somewhere. I should probably embarrass him a little. There he is. And then we have deputy public works director, that's me. And then you see underneath here, we have 3 different divisions. And actually our admin assistant, she's not really her own division, but don't tell her. Because she does everything and helps us. So anyway, we went through a reorganization as of effective on July 1. So I've only been doing this portion of my job for about, 3 or 4 months because it didn't really get kicked in the first couple of months. So what that did is street maintenance division where we have 2 superintendents. I was formerly one of those. While they were supervisors, they were promoted as I got moved up. 27 crew, traffic services sign shop. We have the 2 crew full-time and then 2 part-time crew. And traffic signal comm shop too. So they merged all these different sections together, and we are all now known as streets, or streets division, I guess. I think if you guys have any good names for that, feel free to put it on the suggestion sheet. It's still hard for me not to just talk about streets, so forgive me if I do that. So anyway, I asked Chad Pancake and Rick Larson. Chad's with Signing and Striping. He's the traffic supervisor, Rick Larson, comm shop. I asked them to attend and throw me a lifeline. As I said, like 3 months. 18 years of streets, 3 months of those 2. Okay? All right, so forgive me if I stumble a little bit. So let's get moving here. Actually, one other thing, let me just say, I could spend probably an hour to 2 hours on several of these issues. I'm going to have to go through it somewhat briefly, faster than I should, in the interest of time. Otherwise, Dennis won't get to go tonight. So forgive me if I go a little too fast. Don't be afraid to stop me or say, what did you say? You're going way too fast. But I think some of these subjects might strike a nerve for somebody, or you want to talk about them more, maybe save it till the end, and then we can go from there. So bring on the heat when I'm done. How about that? All right, fair enough. Thank you. All right, so I wanted to show this map. I know it's kind of detailed. I'm glad you guys have it in your packets, but I wanted to put this up. This is our work zone. All right, so traffic services, comp shop, striping, street maintenance. This is where we work every day. This work zone is growing. And we noticed that. And and it's presented us with some challenges, but just a couple little snippets here of what you're looking at. So city streets, these are just city right-of-way, 305 centerline miles. Lane miles will be substantially more than that. We also have within the city, I don't know if you folks are aware of, but within city limits, there are effectively state highways, Montana Department of Transportation. They have the say, they have the jurisdiction, they have the authority. I wanted to mention that because Public Works and also Parks, this is one of our major work items, is back in the 80s we established, and that was long before me, I think I was in grade school. The city approached NBT or vice versa, and we started into a maintenance agreement. Okay, where that agreement was, the city, for whatever reason, decided we wanted to maintain those state routes. Okay, so what, I think some of you, I don't know if any of you have been here since then, but I think where it came from was potentially the city resources were more centrally located. We were probably better able to respond at the time, and I think it alleviated a lot of confusion. So how many of you knew that there's state routes running through town? Oh wow, I guess you guys have gone to the academy. All right, so that's good. Good deal. Well, that's good. So a lot of folks didn't, and it would cause confusion, different service levels, et cetera, so that agreement was started. Another issue here, just I thought the 29 square miles was kind of interesting. Population, I understand since 2017, this is even outdated. I think we're hitting 76,000.
78.
78, thank you. I mean, I still remember Missoula when I was growing up here, it was like 30,000 forever. You guys remember that? So, all right, next one here. All right, state maintenance agreement, as I said before, since the 80s, all three sections of the newly formed streets, this is one of our major work items, so it bears some mention. So they're normally 2-year agreements, and it applies, we do sweeping, we do plowing, we do pothole patching, we take care of signals, we take care of striping, we do a number of activities, snow operations on adjacent sidewalks, and all three, Chad, Comp Shop, streets, we all work on it, okay? NDT will reimburse us for materials and costs and incidentals that we use in conjunction with that work. Currently, let's see, FY17, 470,000, we're over 500,000. Most of that goes to the Public Works. I do have to mention Parks, I guess they went before me. They do about, they're running about 78, 79,000 on the contract. And like I said, it's one of our major operations. One other thing too I should mention, I don't know if you guys remember Russell between Brooks and Ernest last summer. It was turned into Pothole Central. We couldn't keep up with it. MDT and Steve Felix, the maintenance chief, got a hold of me and said, Brian, we got to do something with it. Well, because of that agreement, we can do what we call special projects. They're projects of a larger scale that would go beyond just normal maintenance. We work under that contract. They reimburse us for labor and material subcontractors. Good deal for MDT, saves them like 1.5 years on normal contract administration and saves them quite a bit of money. Great deal for everyone. Next slide. So I kind of mentioned some of the things, but you guys have in your packets, but this is some of the stuff that each of our sections of streets do under the contract and also for the city. Okay. First one. Okay, traffic signals and comm shop. So this is one of our gentlemen. This is Joe. You can obviously see what he's working on. It keeps him quite busy over there, just in case you're wondering. I wanted to show the pie chart of their budget. Notice this number right here, about 25,000. That's for materials and supplies. The majority of our budget is for personnel expenses for 1 supervisor, 2 full-time employees, 3 folks. Remember that map I showed you, Missoula? 3 guys, okay? We'll get into that here in just a minute too. So, some of the responsibilities, as I mentioned, 57 MDT traffic signals, okay? City or city, 11 or city, 332 streetlights and poles. You're like, well, what do you have to do with those, right? They don't do anything. They do require certain amounts of maintenance, and they certainly require attention when they break. So that one of those gentlemen I showed you, Joe, on the first slide, and then another gentleman, Ken, those two provide around-the-clock 24-hour emergency response service 365 a year. They alternate every other week. Major commitment. I commend those guys on what they do. That's a tremendous service. Last Sunday when it was snowing and blowing and cold, I got a call that one of the signs on Broadway was hanging by one strap and we were concerned it was gonna fall. So Joe, and I think Chad, one of your folks too, they're out there in the wind and the cold and the snow at 5 degrees. What was it, minus 20 on the windshield? It was cold. They're up there in a bucket truck swinging around, taking care of it. Okay, tremendous dedication. Light poles, same deal, luminaires. That's the fancy name for light poles. Rick will probably come back and say, Brian, why don't you say this about all the maintenance they do, so forgive me. I know that when they break, same deal, we have to figure out how to get them repaired and fixed. So that's probably our biggest issue. Bulbs, changes, power bills, paying bills. One of the other things, utility locates, any contractor working around any of this infrastructure, Rick's folks go out and paint the lines for the power and then the magnetic detectors for traffic. That's another deal, so we'll get into that one. Rick wanted to show you some of these issues. These are damaged light poles or luminaires that we have to figure out how to get these repaired and paid for. The city invested them. As you can see, some of these 12 grand for that one. Remember that little $25,000 budget I told you about? So if we cannot find the responsible party or bill their insurance company or them personally, we have to figure out how to pay for those. Okay, just keep that in mind. So there's a couple. Luminaire on Madison Street Bridge, it just fell off, I think is what happened. The wind caught it. I don't know, maybe we might be able to get some warranty on that. Hit and run damage at Clark, brand new. Remember the Clark and Mary roundabout? Didn't even make it a year. Hit and run means we don't know who did it. So we're gonna have to figure out how to do that one. Next one, a couple more hit and run damage. 3rd Street roundabout, $3,500. I don't know about those roundabouts. No. Tell you what, they can be difficult to maintain, but I cannot argue a single bit on how well they move traffic, except people running at the light poles. Another one, hit and run at downtown Art Park. I don't know how they did that without hitting the sign next to it, but somebody managed it. $4 grand. So Rick spends quite a bit of time chasing after these for restitution, working with the insurance companies. It's not always an easy thing. Sometimes people don't have insurance. So sometimes if we can get the restitution with the judge, then we gotta get like $25 a month for the next 5 years. So another thing, comm shop. 27, time clock controlled flashing school zone, 16 to 20 installs, 8 rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or as those folks like to call them, RDFBs. I had to practice that one. Not only with the cost, and I call these specialized traffic control devices, but they obviously serve a real important purpose. You see these where, obviously at schools, why they're there to draw drivers' attention, to slow down. There could be kids crossing here, pay attention. Rectangular rapid flashing beacons can go places, same type of deal, not necessarily at a school, where we want to try and get drivers to slow down and help respect the pedestrian traffic. Okay? But we get requests for these frequently, from the public, from other agencies, from the libraries, from the school district. There's more to them than just going out and slapping one in, besides the expensive cost to put them in. So there's this little manual called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's this book that last time I ordered it in '97 was like this thick. And it's prepared by the Federal Highway Administration and the DOT. So you can imagine all the information and how complicated and unwieldy this thing is. Now I don't think you can even buy it on paper. I think it's just all online. But this manual is a guidebook and is law now, but was apparently started back in the 30s. I got this off Wikipedia, so if I make a mistake, you can check. But what I didn't know was back in those days is that the states had private entities like car clubs that were paying to maintain and put signs up on highways. There was no consistency. But who knows what they wrote on them? You might have, beer here, next stop, 5 miles, And so this manual was an attempt to try and get everybody into the same page. So we have the same size signs, the same messaging. And the feds apparently implemented this MUTCD back whenever, and this is what we have today. And of course they leveraged it. If you don't adopt it, then you lose your federal highway funding. Okay, so that's where we are today. But so when these things come in, traffic services, and we have a few other folks that help us, there's a warrant analysis. We have to study. Is it worth investing this amount of money? Is it warranted? Will it help? Will it be effective? These are all things that have to be analyzed. It isn't that we're just being obtuse. My girlfriend hates it when I say that to her. But it's not an angle more than 180, it's being closed-minded. We're not doing that. But we have to analyze it, because if we put them in where they're not effective, the people become callous to them. Let's say I put one of these, every other block, and there's some folks who would like that to happen. Are you gonna pay attention to them all the time? You drive that way every time, there's no one ever there, they lose their effectiveness. Okay, so that's one of the things we have to consider. These guys spend quite a bit of time looking into it, besides the 16 grand. Remember that $25,000 budget I told you about? So oftentimes we're trying to find other means to pay for these things.
Can I ask a question about,
Yes.
so I understand you discouraging people from asking for these,
Right.
but if somebody did, where would citizens go if there's one needed somewhere? Would they go to your office or?
I'm not gonna tell you that. No.
But it's a
that's
really good spot for one to start.
There's several there's ways you can get on city website, call my office, traffic services. There's ways to do it.
Contact your council person.
Yeah, that too. That's a good start. So, all right. I probably spent too much time on that. I apologize. These guys also take care of the flasher four-way stops. There's only one, and Heather held me. That's at Bancroft in South Adams. I was like, where the hell do we have one of those? So that's where. As I mentioned, those all have to be in accordance with the MUTCD standards. Next one. Another one of Rick's responsibilities. These are our 2 communication tower sites. So, police department and fire, I guess they came in, did a hell of a good presentation. Well, I'd like to know how well they'd do if we didn't have these towers. All right, those guys. So as we said, we're kind of the unknown, the silenced partner. So what these sites do is they help us avoid just radio-to-radio contact, which doesn't give you very good signal, doesn't give you very good distance. So these towers help improve signal quality for everybody that uses them. The police, fire, streets, parks, everyone has two-way radios. Not just for communication, but also for emergency contact and event of some major disaster. I have not been up to these now, and since Rick is under my supervision, he's supposed to take me. He said he wasn't going to take me, but we're going to go. I want to go look at these now. All right, another one of their major responsibilities. This happens to be a police car. And this was, I strolled by there one day, and there's this panel that pulls out of the back of the trunk. That's what all that stuff is. So when PD gets new police cars, this year we had 8. Rick's crew, they install all this stuff. Yeah, that's what I said, wow. So then you have new vehicles, they have computers, they have to communicate with all this stuff. And I'm lucky if I can plug the USB into the right port on my laptop. All right, so this is a huge task for these guys. Saves police department a ton of money. If they try to send that out and contract it, it would be expensive. Plus, Rick's guys, they provide a lifetime warranty at no additional cost. All right? So when these break down, who do they go? They don't go to Radio Shack. They come right back in to call. Remember, 2 guys. Okay. All right. So 247 portable radios. Those are the ones the police, they click. Fire department, street division even has a couple of them. $1,200 a piece for those. We said it was the last time it was when I bought one. 30 police patrol cars. So not only do the new installs, they also have, remember lifetime warranty? All the old ones, they have to work on those. Okay, so huge amount of work. 80 hours, usually the first one takes the longest. This was one in process. I also walked by this one at the right time. I was just like, wow. So my hat's off to those guys that put this in. It's a hell of a service they provide, and it's not an easy one. Let's see. Oh, and also not just the communications, but the light bars. All the city-owned vehicles, not just police. They do stuff for all of us. So most of the other vehicles aren't as complicated as the patrol cars, but we all have radios, light bars, LEDs on top, and these guys do all of it for the whole city, the whole fleet. So as I mentioned, approximately $2,400 a car for police that we're saving those guys. Another thing too, Rick, this has come up in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I'm thinking maybe before that. But one of the things that Rick is finding himself spending a lot more time is any project, whether it be city or private development, that includes some sort of lighting to be constructed in the right-of-way. Rick is providing a massive service for them by reviewing their plans so that they comply with MUTCD. Also, we want them to meet our city standards, right? But let's say a developer comes in, he says, I got this screaming deal on these real cheap ones out of China. There was a closeout last year, they're made. They put those in. Rick's guys have to maintain those for the next 100 years. What happens when somebody hits one and we can't buy one? They're out of service. Sorry, Mr. Larson. So it's a tremendous service that Rick's doing. He's spending a fair amount of his time reviewing these plans for free. I'm working on trying to get him some money. We're going to work on trying to get a fee going where we get some of that back. Okay. And it's certainly in the city's best interest. Yes, sir.
Do you have to get competitive bids for when you purchase stuff?
Yes.
Like the lowest bid, or I don't know.
We
how it
do.
works here.
But the developers don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's the difference. So Rick's reviewing those to make sure we're getting what we want that meets our specifications. Good question. Next one. All right, traffic services. That's the other part. We have the sign shop, the formerly known as signing and striping. And that's Mr. Pancake, Chad. All right, so I have visual aids. I don't have brochures, so we'll get to these in a second. All right, so same deal, budget pipe chart. Chad has a little bit more money, just so you know, 82,000. Okay. Personnel is a large part of it. So, one supervisor, 2 full-time employees, 2 part-time 10-monthers. Okay. Well, same work zone, City of Missoula. All right, next one. So, painting and striping. The PM, I put that on there for me so I know that's a performance measure. Okay, it's not time. So this is what they did last year. Completed striping 158 linear miles. That's center line, that's fog line, that's bike lanes, all of that truck. We got that truck, what, 2 years, Chad?
I think we're going on about 5 or 6 now.
Oh, there you go. I was in the streets for those years. I didn't pay attention what the hell they were doing. Anyway, tremendous benefit for them. Chad says they can measure. This is actual mileage. The truck keeps track of it for them. Yeah, that's cool. Annual roadway restriping. We're supposed to refresh everything every year. Several years back, there was an industry-wide change in paint where they switched from oil-based to water-based. I understand it was for environmental impacts and then also to help preserve the safety of the workers that were actually applying it. Okay, there were some health concerns. Good move in those 2 areas. Bad move on workload. This paint lasts a year if we're lucky. Okay, the workload, that just exploded for us. So huge amount of effort. 2 full-time, 2 10-month part-time. $80-some thousand. Okay, you can imagine where I'm going with this, right? All right, so we have 68 miles of bike lanes. There's 350 bicycle sharrows. Do we all know what those are? Bicycle sharrows. They're kind of an arrow that, since there may not be room in a particular street for an actual bike lane, so we will put these arrows in there in their special shape that indicates that this portion of the road is to be shared by motor vehicles and bicycles, called sharrows. Sharrows. If we have time, I'll try and draw one. 350 out there that we should be doing just to keep up with our annual schedule, right? They got 100. How long are summers in Montana? 10 minutes until it changes, or not much. So that's what we struggle with. We struggle with budget issues. We struggle with crew, work size, but also the weather. Okay, everything we do is dependent on the weather. To accomplish Chad's mission, 4,000 to 4,500 gallons of paint. Just thought that was interesting. Yes, sir.
I have a question. If this striping budget were to be doubled, how would Missoula look different?
It wouldn't just need to be the budget. We need more folks. We need more people. That's a really good question. Can I maybe see at the end? There's a lot to that. And I can only guess, but there's some things that we would probably all like to do and would see done different. But if I go into that, we won't get to anything else. Sure. So I apologize. Dismissed.
Are you running crews at night?
Not on paint.
Not on paint.
Not on that part of it. It's temperature based. Chad does do some of the difficult areas at night, but kind of on a special arrangement. Crosswalks, we'll get into those. There's places where you'll see the guys coming in early in the morning. You've probably all seen that. Okay. Next one. So, traffic service also provides curb painting. We are nowhere near keeping up with curb painting, not even close. So what's Chad guys do? Not only with the long striping, but curb painting, they'll go out, we'll get a request, Normally it's complaint driven. If part of the curb is, the paint's bad here for like 5 feet, then the other 3 feet's fine, they just do the 5 feet. That's what we have to do, just to try and keep up. Performance measure, completed school and other crosswalks. So, school crosswalks are obviously a huge priority for us, obviously. Last year, Chad's crews did 120. With the annexation and the new school at Miller Creek, we're pushing 100 forward. So they're not only with the school crosswalks, but they also prioritize other crosswalks in high traffic areas of town. Commercial, first place Chad goes every year is downtown. Where's all the traffic? Get all the crosswalks done. It's a huge task. Let's see, right now, if we were to do everything, we should have over 900 sharrows. We're gonna fall behind on that. We're not there yet. Next one. About 100,000 signs in Missoula. I was not aware until I took this position that there's a life on signs. That apparently 5 to 7 years, the retroreflectivity, that's the ability of that sign to reflect headlights at night. That wears out. Who the hell knew that? 5 to 7 years. 100,000 signs in Missoula. I can guarantee you there's probably signs left in Missoula over here than from when my grandpa poured the concrete for the end in this town. Bet you his signs, some of them are still there. Some of the sidewalks in front of your houses were possibly poured by my grandpa back then. And they're probably the same sign. Anyway, huge task, a lot of work. My visual aids, I brought these in just for this. For some reason, signs like this, they don't stick around. More wind shear. Or, there's another one that he can't even keep in stock, similar to this one, but with Jane at the end. That one, I don't even know. I don't know how many of these. These are 40 or 50 bucks a piece. That's seriously.
It's really high.
I think they are hit lock one. We need to do something. Yeah. Apparently they're quite popular with college kids. So, I mentioned the reflectivity, replacement of signs. Chad also has issues if he can't find the responsible party when people mow these over. Comes out of his budget for replacement. For 40 or 50, I'll get to the next one, but I think they do between about 100 and 300 of these per year. That adds up on our budget. Chad also makes a tremendous amount of effort to go out and try to find the responsible parties and get restitution. We have to, obviously. Same deal with the RDFBs and the school flashing zones. We get all kinds of requests for stop signs. People are speeding on my street. Well, the MUTCD provides guidance, thank goodness, right? We can't just go slapping stop signs for about the same reasons with the RDFBs. We have to perform a warrant analysis. We have to go out and do traffic counts of how many pedestrians are actually stopping there. Is there a speed issue? There's a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm probably not even coming close to scratching the surface. Rick and Chad, we're so fortunate to have them and the expertise. They know that book like the back of their hand. I don't. That's why we have them. So I'm fortunate in that. Same deal, we get a lot of requests for citizens. We're not trying to be difficult. We have to decide if they're warranted. Every sign that we put up, every crosswalk, makes more work, more money, more budget. So we have to go into it with some thought. We can't just go and slap these in every time we get a request. Okay.
And that's mandated by federal?
Yes, MUTCD, it's a federal guideline. Next one, additional duties. So, as I mentioned, MUTCD prescribes certain analyses and things that have to be done. Chad does over 100 traffic and speed counts per year himself. Okay. Review construction plans for adequate and correct signage. So this is another thing Chad's had to get into, also like Rick, in reviewing these plan sets that come in from private developers in the city who have tremendous service once again. Chad's making sure that MUTCD requirements are being followed and meet our city specs. Once again, huge benefit. Like even like some of these signs, they have to be a certain height so you don't bonk your head on them. They have to be set so far back from the back of the sidewalk so you don't bonk your head on. Every complicated dimension you can imagine is in that book that tells us how to do these. Okay. Yes, sir.
You were talking about school crossings. Are the school crossing guards I see, are they volunteers? Are they part of your department, or are they the city with you? Or?
I believe they're volunteers. They're not, I don't think the city employs any guards.
Schools and schools and they're paid. It's MCPS.
Okay.
They're in compliance with ABTCD too, I'm sure. They only be so tall. There's probably a guideline on it, I'll bet. I'm sure there
They
is.
just run out and start doing it.
Yeah. So, here's, Chad has access to traffic counts. You guys have often seen the tubes going across the streets. We like to plow them up with our guys at street maintenance, or sweepers. They suck those babies right up. And then Chad calls and chews me out. So here's Chad. He's doing an inspection. And, not only just the plan review part of it, once the contractors are done, they both go out and inspect it to make sure they actually did what we recommended. Okay, so this is becoming more and more important for what we do, but I'm also trying to get some money back to for what those guys are putting in. We're just trying to figure out how much. Yes,
So
Madison.
just to clarify, this also similar to lighting, currently there's no fee to the developers to get it.
I'm talking just about their time to review it.
Right.
So no, there's not.
Okay.
And it's not gonna be huge.
Sure.
But we should be doing something.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Another thing, Chad's folks, part of our state maintenance contract and traffic services, and then also parks do, taking care of these sidewalks adjacent to city right of way for us and then MDT. They put forth a tremendous effort. There's 2 guys out there right now. You only have 2 folks in the winter, right, Chad? Correct. So you'll see them out there at 5 a.m. They're doing sidewalk work. They have this one 4-wheeler. A lot of them are hand shoveling. Okay, so they're not just driving along in a heated cab. They're out there getting out and shoveling and working. 4.5 miles, as you can see. All right, this one, I only have one little sentence here for this machine. This is a sidewalk grinder, and I want to talk about this. This is kind of huge. It's really cool. So this program, and I've gotten ahead of my notes, so this program was implemented in, I believe, 2003. Prior to that time, the city paid out approximately $47,000 per year for injuries on slips and trips. Now, it's not average. It was like 1 year we did 150, and 3 years later we did 200. But within like a 10-year time frame, that's what it averages out. Okay. Since the implementation of that program, since 2003, we have paid out 0. Okay, now, the money that's secondary, right? The important part is people aren't tripping and falling, right? Tremendous, tremendous program those guys put on. They take care of it, do a bunch of work. We should all be proud of it. I know I am, and I just found out about it a couple weeks ago. Okay, so. Some of the other things they help with, Chad's guys, bicycle rack installation, maintenance and removal. That's just kind of an incidental thing. That's what they're doing there. And then also, they assist the police department with cutting locks. Apparently there's quite the crime wave in this town for bicycles. So Chad's guys will often get called to do some, just some help with cutting those locks. All right. Okay, street maintenance. How are we doing for time? Okay, I did a lot better than I did practicing with it. Last time when I hit this, I had 10 minutes left to do streets. 18 years and 10 minutes. All right, so I don't need notes on this one. Oh, next time I went the wrong way. Okay, so street maintenance, this is where I spent the last 18 years of my life, and I love it. I had the best job in the world. This is our chip seal process, or chip spreader dump truck. That dump truck is connected to that chip spreader. When people ask me, why don't you do cul-de-sacs? So that apparatus right there is probably as long as this room. Imagine trying to turn that in a cul-de-sac. All right, so street divisions pie chart. Ours is obviously quite a bit bigger. Remember, we have 27 crew and streets, now 2 superintendents. So we have a little more money. Materials and supplies from the road district. I won't go into too much on that, 1.5. Personnel, 2.2 mil. And then this gas tax, I'll mention gas tax briefly. So for years and years, the city of Missoula has been the benefit of a gas tax allocation. Since the 90s, I think it was. So anyway, we get so much money from when you go to the gas station and wherever that tax is, based on centerline miles of streets and city limits. And it's been that way for years. It historically has not gone up until just, I think last year, we finally got a little bump. It's usually around $1 million, now we're at about 1.1 million. It's been there forever, okay? Of that million, $564,000, it's been this way before I ever showed up, goes to cover personnel expenses for street division. So that's one of our funding sources. Now it's kind of hidden right here because you see gas tax is 536, that's what's left. So of that 1 million, part of it goes to personnel, part of it I can spend on buying materials and other items, okay? All right, next slide. Street sweeping. You guys have probably all seen the sweepers out there. This is one of our major activities for obvious reasons. Air quality, water quality, keeping the streets clean. We are in a fugitive particulate zone that was established by the EPA back in the early 90s for air quality issues. And part of that designation is a pain, believe me. However, it does make us available to getting additional federal funds for it to help preserve air quality. That's why we have a good sweeping fleet, because we only pay about 16 cents on the dollar. That sweeper there's 200 grand. I have 6 of those. And then 3 mechanicals, and then 3 flushers, okay? We try to get the city swept at least 4 times. We do it organized. We also do it unorganized during leaf collection. I'll get to that. But that's why we do it. It's a great program. I think of the things that we do, sweeping's probably one of the best. There are issues with it as the city grows and goes up with apartments, on-street parking. That's tough. It's always been tough, and I'm seeing it's getting more and more difficult in certain places. Obviously also helps prevent water quality, air quality. Great program. All right, leaf collection. This is like herding cats, but worse. I used to call it leaf dispersion before we had leaf tarps on the trucks. So when you first start and the leaves are real dry and you go down Reserve Street, on the way to Echo, they'd be gone half of them. And then somebody came up, Brian, why don't you get leaf tarps? Ruined all my fun. So, well, but those were what, $900 to $1,200 a piece. We had 8 trucks. So it was no small deal. So we ended up doing it. This is really cool. This is an old surplus garbage truck. And I think we bought it out of Deer Lodge for $30,000. It was well worn out. It was as rusty on the inside as you can see on the outside. But we fixed it up. We got an amazing welder. I told him, I said, hey, I need to get some kind of a bin on the back of this that's big enough to accommodate a loader bucket. He built that. I think he should patent it. This garbage truck can do the work of 3 tandems because it compacts the leaves. And then nothing flies out of it either. So it's kind of boring, but it works great. Okay. It was a hell of a benefit to get it. I wanted one for years. We finally just said, hey, vehicle maintenance had a little surplus when we found this when we got it. Saves us quite a bit of money. Leaf collection, of all the services that we provide, I often get the question, why do you guys pick up leaves? What a waste of time and money. I will tell you, maybe you guys already know this, it is probably the most appreciated service that we do. I think people would rather I not plow streets versus giving up leaf collection. So I always get, well, how much does it cost? Well, there's a cost to it, of course. There's a cost for everything. But if we weren't doing leaf collection, we'd be doing something else. Leaf collection, we fight against the winter and the weather. Okay, when we get started, well, why are you starting up the rouse tank? The leaves aren't even down yet. Okay, if I don't get started early enough, I never get done. So then, when we're out there picking leaves up, what happens when it snows 2 weeks in and I'm supposed to be in area 2? Same guys that are supposed to be doing leaf collection then have to go out and go snow plowing. So then the schedule gets blown up, and that's when the cats come in. That I'm hurting, remember? Same type of deal. So then the schedule gets grenaded, and then we have to try and make it work as best possible. Yes, sir?
How are you doing on signing streets for sweeping and such?
Not very well. No, well, that's a good question. So we have special districts 1, 2, and 3. We put out additional signs on type 2 barricades. I don't know if you folks have seen those. In districts 1 and 2, we also have permanent place signs that have been there for years. I think those are invisible now. I really do, because they don't seem to work very well. But even with the barricades placed at every intersection, I spend, about $900 a day, 2 tow trucks to move the people that don't comply with it on street parking.
I have
One
a
of our biggest
question.
challenges.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
So those are posted, no parking.
Right.
But the city pays for the towing
Purchase.
and the bringing back of someone's car, and we don't get reimbursement?
Try not to bring them back if we don't have to, but but here's the issue. We have abandoned vehicles out there, right? So if they sit for so long, then they can be picked up. If somebody moves them, that 30 days starts over. And then what if I take an abandoned vehicle that's supposedly on its probation time, waiting time to be picked up? I move it, and then somebody else, so why is this abandoned car in front of my house now? We gotta put it back and let them know it's an issue. It's tough. Plus, all of you, how many of you own Subarus, all-wheel drive? Yeah, I hate those. And a lot of those Subaru owners, they like to turn their wheels into the curb because they know I can't tow those. All-wheel drive, can't, yeah, I shouldn't tell you guys that.
It's now an MCAT, now everybody knows.
I shouldn't mention Subarus, I mean, there are other all-wheel drive vehicles, I get it. All right, so, anyway. There's one subject, leaf collection, I could spend 2 hours on it if we wanted to. Your question alone, yeah, leaf collection's a big one. I'm just scratching the surface. Milling and paving, this is huge for me. This is my favorite thing to do. I love going out and fixing old streets. I love being able to make things smooth. Take a street that was potholed and busted up, had water pooling, and fix it. And do it well. It gives me such a sense of pride, as I hope it does for all you folks as the people I'm working for. This one right here, how many go to Costco and Lowe's? Remember that nightmare in the water for years? We finally were able, I got some funding to go out, we fixed the streets, we improved some ADA laydowns, no more water. This is really good mix, this is a state special grade mix. This is in front of Costco and Lowe's. Great project, came out well, we're gonna try and chip seal it this summer. Okay, hopefully I won't have to mess with this again until I retire. That's the goal. 40, I guess I forgot to mention, 48.9 blocks. I wanted to put this one in here. This is Dearborn and Fort Missoula Road. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, I assume so. This was one of our frequent pothole spots for years. We struggled with it. It had a poor crown, it had ruts, didn't have curb, and it was something that we tried to keep up with, but it had inadequate infrastructure for drainage. I don't like to go spend a bunch of money on a street that cannot drain the stormwater or has a lot of ruts, right? I'm wasting your money, because all it's gonna do is pull up pothole out in 2 years. However, this street was pretty neat, because this was our first project where we could use the new gas tax called VARSA. And you can see the acronym is Missoula Road Pay For Bridge and Road Safety and Accountability. So this was a new gas tax, and I don't know how many folks have heard about it. I don't know a tremendous amount about it, but the Montana legislature approved it so that these funds could be allocated to cities, counties to do work on streets, period. It has to be dedicated for street work. So what they did was they made it project based. They didn't just give it to streets and say, hey, look, go have at it. We have to provide a match. We have to document the match. So on this project, I had to put together an estimate for what I thought it would take. And then that was turned into Helena. We requested the funds. This was the first allocation. Had we not had that gas tax VARSA allocation, it would have never been done. Big project, not the best infrastructure, but we improved the crown. We put a tremendous, an increase in thickness on it to help prevent running. There was already pedestrian facilities in place. We didn't have to upgrade any laydowns. Great first project. Another one I'm proud of. I hope any of you driven on this, what do you think? Yeah. The new park too going in, we anticipated a lot more traffic, so it was a good one to do. And also I worked with Fort Missoula and I helped them out too. Their streets are terrible out there. I wish I could have done more. All right, next one. All right, chip sealing. This is one of our major efforts. Chip sealing by far is the best maintenance technique that you can apply to asphalt, bar none. Second place is crack sealing. Street Division is one of the few cities that has all the equipment necessary to perform a chip seal. Now, as of last year, I didn't have our own distributor truck. We are now getting our own oil distributor truck, which would be fantastic. Chip sealing, everybody in Montana does it exactly the same time. There's now only one contractor. If I could have a chip seal distributor truck, it's worth more than gold between July and August in Montana. We now have the ability to have our own. This will save us efficiency, time, having to also cope with contractor schedules. They want to chip here one day, and then they got to go to Helena the next day, and they don't care what my problems are.
So Brian, could you talk
Yes.
about why there's only a 1 month period of time that you can
Yes,
chip seal?
thank you, great question. So, chip sealing is heavily temperature dependent. Hotter the better. Shade can give us issues. Cool asphalt temp, 65 and rising. Okay, when it rains, it kills me. We always chip seal in the third and fourth weeks of July, first and second weeks of August. That is the best part of the summer in Montana. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. Don't leave during those months. Tell your friends or relatives, that's when they want, oh, well, maybe don't tell them this. We do it at the same time simply because we rarely have problems with weather. Now, trees and shade in the morning, that can be difficult. Chip sealing is a great project, saves you a ton of money, preserves the streets, it helps prevent potholes, it's the best thing I can do. All right, yes?
Can you say a little bit more about what that actually is? Like-
Yes. It's kind of like painting your house with gravel.
All right.
How difficult is it to like decrease the aggregate size and have it still be effective?
It's real easy, all I gotta do is change it, but I don't like to. So what we do on heavy travel streets, arterials, collectors, and also MDT routes. MDT, they're kind of the ones that got me going on this. They prefer the 1/2-inch chips. Okay, that means it'll fall through a hole on the screen that's a 1/2 inch. They like those better. It kind of convinced me that for main routes, I kind of like them. I get more life out of them. On other places, on lower travel streets, residentials, we use 3/8. It's not, well, it's 1/8 of an inch. Makes a hell of a difference if you're bike riding a skateboard, whatever you're doing. 1/2-inch chips aren't popular, but they give us more bang for the buck. There's no way to argue with it. I'm giving you the best product. They do cost a little more in oil. A 1/2-inch chip takes a thicker amount, more oil, CRS2P, which is that black stuff, that's the asphalt emulsion, to make them stick. So we have to use a little more oil, there's a little more expense with it, but it's worth it, okay? Yes?
So when you said that there's only one truck like this in Montana, does now that mean that there will be two because we'll have one and nobody else will have one?
I may be exaggerating a little bit, that was just how I felt last summer. Boy, is it hot in here, holy smoke, I'm glad I went first. So, I'm sure there's more than that, Megan, great question, but the fact that we're gonna have our own, I just gotta get somebody trained. This is a skill. I mean, if you ever want to retire, go learn how to drive an oil distributor truck, seriously. So, we gotta get trained up on it, I'm excited, we finally have our own. I used to have to schedule the contracted distributor trucks a year in advance, and then it was a maybe. Like last year, my contractor, she's great, Liz Sorley out of Billings. She had to bail on me. She said, Brian, I gotta go to Helena, sand the gravel, I'm sorry. I had to cut our program short last year. Nothing I can do. And she got rained out before she showed up for us. Okay, and what am I gonna say? You're fired, Liz. There's no one else I could bring back next year. Okay, so anyway. Pothole patching. I really debated on using this. This is a huge pothole. But Heather and Gwen convinced me, oh, this is a good one. And so what you see here is people always say, well, how come you guys don't come out and do more or patch streets or whatever? Notice on this particular picture, see these right here? These are called alligator cracking, and that is actually the term described in the MUTCD. Well, I think it is, I don't know, that's what we always call it. Anyway, alligator cracking. This asphalt is technically failed. Water gets in there, it freezes, thaws, you get a massive pothole. All right, also notice, there's no curb over here, and also no sidewalk. So as far as the street's concerned, the curb is the important part. What does curb do? Takes water from the center of the street, funnels it to a drain at intersections. Without that curb, you get this, okay? Without a good crown to take it to the curb, you get that. So let's go on out here. This is, I don't know whatever time of year it is, it's likely not the winter, all right? Paving plants close in the wintertime. This is all I have until, I think, April 1 this year. This is a big patch. This isn't the best way to do it. But I've had people call, well, how come you don't go out and square cut it? So where do I stop square cutting on this? Like half a block that way and half in the wintertime when I can't get a paving crew out? Last year, our crews patched over 9,000 potholes. Some of them only held for a few days, but that counts. But it's a tremendous job, and it has its challenges. We have ways to deal with our recycler so that we can recycle millings, make our own hot mix in the winter. Problem with it, it's a little drier. You have to try and put a rejuvenator to get it to stick. I recently purchased a infrared patcher, which is really cool. It's 4x4, you heat it up, softens up the existing asphalt, add a little rejuvenator, rake it, makes a great patch. Any of you live up Miller Creek in Briggs, that area? There's a perpetual pothole right there at Briggs and Miller Creek. Couldn't keep it patched. First trip out with the asphalt recycler, we used it, put the rejuvenator down, put our spray patch on it. It's still there. Going on, I think, what, a year now? Tough spot to be. It doesn't drain. It's rutted right there. So it's the fact that it's lasted that long is amazing. Problem with that machine, though, it's low productivity. Wintertime right now, how long is it going to take to heat up a pothole right now outside, you think? I don't know. It's probably long. We did that one at 90 degrees and it took us some time. Anyway. If we can do more chip sealing, that's a big part of it. All right, I really want to skip this one right now. Do you guys mind if we skip snow? All right. What do you say? We have a priority system. Anybody that's watched local news or even been on the city website, you probably have some familiarity with our priority system. What it basically is that we realized years ago that the city does not have all the resources we need to plow every street within 24 or 48 hours the moment it starts snowing. So this priority system was created well before me, I think also back in the 90s, where we're trying to allocate the resources that we have to provide the most benefit for the most people. So the priority system, I think I got a map in here. You guys can read all those statistics, but statistics. All right, so this is a general overview. Snow operations, I could spend 2 hours on this easy. And you guys could ask me questions, get us by another 2 hours. But these red routes, priority 1s. Blue routes, priority 2s. Green routes, 3s. These priority systems are based on traffic volumes, school routes, steep grades, and even hills. Okay? We obviously want to prioritize those streets with heavy traffic. We also want to prioritize bus routes. Okay? That's how we do it. Why isn't my street plowed? It's been snowing. You guys, it hasn't snowed for 2 days. How come you haven't done my residential, my flat street? Well, I'll tell you, when a snowstorm's going on like it has for the last 2 or 3 days, we do not leave our priority 1s and 2s until it quits snowing. In my years of doing this stuff, I've been on, how many times? Every time. The guys will get Reserve Street done an hour later, still snowing, looks like we weren't even there. Okay? I have guys come in on day shift. This just happened here last week. One of my guys came in and he's upset. What is that night shift doing? They haven't done anything. And I'll leave out some of the other words he said. He didn't think they'd done anything. And it had been snowing the whole time. Well, this was out in the annexed area in Flynn Lake. So we got on the GPS. Well, there had been 2 employees out there working in his area doing 1s and 2s, and he didn't think they'd been out there. That's what we're faced with. So you guys really think, should I leave Reserve Street in the middle of a snowstorm? Probably not, right? Concrete bridges get slick. That's the challenge we're faced with. That's why your residential hasn't been flat. Also thrown in with the fact that during that storm, your street's being driven on, compacted, people are shoving their driveways, opening up their mailboxes, doing whatever, and then the street division comes along 3 days later, and what do? Make some nice berms. We're not supposed to do sidewalks. We do, unfortunately, on occasion. But we plow everybody in, right? That is if the plows can get enough down pressure to pick that snow up. Oftentimes when it's cold, a truck plow cannot exert enough downforce to clear that packed snow up. So the only thing they can do is clear the park lanes, the loose snow. Should I make a berm in front of your mailbox in the parking lane? Do you really want me to do that? Probably not. Well, you're young, you can shovel that. That's the dilemma we face. However, when temperatures start to warm up, we get the 3 ruts, right? You gotta share the one in the middle. Those of you with the all-wheel drive Subarus have no trouble getting out of that, do you? Some people, they don't agree with that. So then we have to go and we have to try and get those ruts picked up, and we just do driving lanes to try and get those ruts taken care of. Huge, huge amount of work for us. Okay, that's when we'll try to get into your residentials. That can take, just to finish up, that alone can take a couple weeks. Okay. All right.
Brian, it's about 5 minutes of 8.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm slowing down. Stormwater, I'll let Dennis go into this a little bit. Street division historically, we've also dealt with installing sumps, redigging sumps, and then also cleaning them. We struggle with cleaning them. They should be done on a 5-year rotation, depending. Some should be done more. We struggle. We are basically now, if we have a water pool, we'll go out and clean it. And then it probably has to be redug later on. This is a huge amount of work, but The stormwater district should hopefully alleviate some of those issues. And I may or may not still have to deal with them, I'm not sure. Sorry guys, I apologize, I started getting too. Another thing we've done over the years, in conjunction with digging sumps, redigging sumps, it used to be I could hire a concrete guy to come out and do concrete curb and sidewalk for me at a sub $300. Well, then it went up to 4, then it went to 6, then all of a sudden it was 1,200. And then after that, I couldn't get anybody. I'm like, Brent, I'm not gonna come work for you. $4,000 if you're, and then they wouldn't even do it. So several years back, one of the guys asked me, why don't we do our own concrete? So I took 2 of our guys off a crew, we have our own concrete crew. I didn't get any more guys, I just took them off other stuff. They're busy all the time. And this year's even more. I got more concrete work to do than I know what to do with. But it's been a tremendous savings for it. They do good work, and it's just fantastic to have them available. And I don't have to rely on how busy all the contractors are. Like right now, the last couple of years, I couldn't have got a contractor to come work for me. Do a job here, do a job there. No way. All right. Last slide, crack sealing. Remember I told you about the maintenance techniques. This is number 2. Crack sealing is something I would love to keep doing more and more of. Crack sealing is most effective when temperatures are cold, not when streets are wet, but when the temperatures are cold, then the cracks are at the widest. Which kind of goes against what you think, why would they be the widest? Everything contracts. Well, the asphalt pad itself, that contracts, which opens the cracks up. Now, we have to do it, you'll see my guys out here at 95 degrees in July because we have to. What we try to do is we want to fill in all these large cracks prior to a chip seal. Okay, we just don't have enough time to get it all done in spring and fall. So that's one of my challenges, some of the things we're looking at changing. Yes, sir. I'm done, that's it, guys.
What do you put the crown angle at when you chip seal?
Chip seal doesn't really affect the crown.
Okay.
It's the quarter crowns and the overlays. We always try to keep them under 5%.
Yeah.
Some places, some of the stuff is 20 or 30 years old. They didn't mill it and they added to it to get a quarter crown.
Yeah.
Some of them are more than that. We're working on it, but when we come in there and redo them, I'll fix that.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Your map of state routes is curious to me that it runs down Higgins, southwest Higgins to Russell and back up Russell, but not 39. Why not 39?
Good question. 39th is city right away, but it's also a federal urban aid route, which means it's ours, but the feds can still contribute money to it. That's administered by MDT. Why it's all set up that way, I don't know. And not all the state routes do we maintain. The map that I showed you are the ones that the crew have to use so that when they go out to work on those jobs, they know where they're working. So that's the ones that are prescribed in our maintenance agreement. Okay. Yeah.
One thing I've always been amazed at is the synchronization of traffic signal lights across the city. And I've always wondered, do you have a big war room with giant screens and programmers?
The big red button, I can push it to grenade the whole thing. I wish.
How do you do all that?
Rick, remember, that's why you're here. This is Lifeline.
No, there isn't.
Rick Larson.
Each intersection runs itself out of pre-programmed plan.
Okay.
It's linked to a server that actually calls for all that. If we lose communication, then the intersection just runs on its own.
So it's not one big system, it's each one is by itself.
No, we don't have anything impressive. I can actually pull up the city map on my little screen on my desktop. It doesn't really look impressive like you see. But we don't have a traffic control.
But fire engines and police can turn them all green when they're going down the street?
Police cannot. Ambulance and fire trucks can.
Okay.
All right, so one quick question. Okay, Megan seems to be.
Is our agreement similar, the city of Missoula agreement with the state, is that similar to every other large city in Montana? Or it just seems interesting that they're paying for materials and supplies but not labor?
Well, they are. That's part of it. If I didn't explain that thoroughly, I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's all included in that lump sum.
Okay.
But I have not reviewed all the other agreements. To my understanding, there's not many left with the state. I heard Billings, they got rid of theirs a couple years ago. I think Helena still has one. I don't know. I haven't looked at their other contracts.
All right, a round of applause. Okay, everybody. You met teddy bear number 1. And now teddy bear number 2 is none other than Dennis Bowman. As all of you know, the city of Missoula had the great fortune, after only 100 years of efforts, of acquiring its own municipal water company. And this man right here really took a leap of faith to come talk to the mayor and figure out a way to make it actually work. He's a man of passion, of water, but he's also learned to expand a little bit into sewer and wastewater. Am I missing anything there?
Stormwater.
Stormwater. thank you.
Compost.
Oh, as I said. So he really takes care of our utilities. And with that, Dennis Bowman.
Thank you very much. Like Heather said, my name is Dennis Bowman. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director for the utilities. They combined some additional responsibility last summer, just like Brian. I got 33 years experience in the water industry. I worked at this location 22 years under Mountain Water. Tomorrow will be my 2-year anniversary employed by the city of Missoula. So it's been great. Like Heather said, the additional responsibility is also stormwater and the wastewater. And the wastewater is not only the plant, but also the collection system. And then associated with the wastewater plant is the compost facility and the poplar farm. So the trees that are growing out there. So you guys are going to be the first group is what put this together. I had this idea of putting it together, try to show the cycle of water, basically, of all 3 utilities. So basically this is showing like rain, snow runoff and that, stormwater division, wastewater division. So it shows the roads, how all this goes into the roads for stormwater, dry wells, how it goes down into the aquifer. Basically, then to move over to the water department, how we pull the water out of the aquifer. It goes into the reservoirs boosters, onto the customer's houses. Customers use the water. It goes into the collection system, part of it, out to the treatment plant. We pulled in ballpark about 1 million gallons a day in the summertime to feed the poplar trees. And then the waste also goes out to the compost facility. So this is new. So I appreciate any comments in that on it. But just want to basically show all 3 departments how water impacts it. Yes, sir.
Do you have a problem at the compost facility? Does it leach out metals? No.
They test it, and it's run totally different than ECO did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, totally different. And I'll get into, there's a couple of slides in here of all the improvements that we've done with the compost facility and that.
Yeah.
And we're actually also working with the university, trying to get the university installed or help us out with doing some additional testing and some PR work for us and that to promote the compost.
Can you remind me what the poplar trees, what happens with those?
This was an experiment a few years ago, and I can get into it later on in the slides, but I'll touch base real quick on it. DEQ, state DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, they regulate not only the water, they regulate stormwater. They also regulate the wastewater. And there's certain contaminant levels of nitrate, nitrite, phosphorus that we can discharge into the river. So we're well under those limits. But if they change the rules and regulations in the future, we have to try to reduce that. So one of the ways of reducing it is turn around and take some of that effluent water and put it to the poplar plant. They grow so fast and they suck up all that. So that's less we got to discharge to the Clark Fork River.
And then what happens to the trees?
We're in the process of, originally they were looking at is trying to do, use it for furniture, use it for biofuels, molding. So we're still, we still got, depends on what arborist you talk to, anywhere from 5 to 10 years to figure out what we're going to do with it. So, but it's really not cost effective, to be honest with you. But you can't put a value on the knowledge we're gaining on how much they suck up and everything. We increased the pumps just the end of last year, so we're going to be able to pump out 1.5 million a day out there. So it's been a great program, great program. I borrowed a little video, so stormwater, I'm gonna show off with stormwater, and I borrowed a little video from Bozeman. They did this, and we're gonna work with MCAT to do our own video, to try to show the public the importance of stormwater. Does anybody know why we have a stormwater department?
Show and tell, right?
Yeah, yep. Hopefully you guys can hear it.
As an arriving storm stirs Main Street, you're about to witness one of Bozeman's growing challenges, one in which each of us can make an immediate difference. Within minutes of rain arriving, people are jumping over puddles and running for cover. Unable to soak into hard surfaces, rain is flowing off everything to drains and into a system of underground pipes. It's happening all over our growing city as we replace our natural sponges, open lands that absorb rain and snowmelt, and wetlands that hold water for us, with impervious surfaces that stormwater can't soak into. The good part of Bozeman's stormwater system is it protects our homes and businesses by moving water away from foundations and reduces the chances of flooding. The bad part is water running across hard surfaces picks up whatever has accumulated.
All the pollutants that exist on the city surface, like oils and greases, fertilizers, dog waste, trash, sediment, all that stuff gets taken with the water.
Where the accumulated pollution goes is crucial. The pipes inside our storm drains are separate from our sewer system. Stormwater does not go to a treatment plant. It flows directly to our local streams and ponds. At stake is the health of places Bozeman residents cherish, where we introduce kids to water, exercise our dogs, and renew ourselves in the presence of fish and wildlife. Places like Story Mill, not just enhanced by water, but defined by water, where you might see much more than deer, like trout spawning in the East Gallatin River, or a muskrat heading out on his evening rounds. With these hallmarks of Bozeman in mind, Kyle Marins of the city's Stormwater Division wishes we could all see what sometimes pours from outfalls like this one.
A black sludge coming out of the pipe. And that black sludge is the result of sediment and trash, fertilizer, grass clippings. It's very shocking. It's something that everyone should see, because if you see it, it's going to dramatically change the way you say manage your yard. Because once you establish this connection in your mind that what I'm doing in my yard or driveway or road in front of my house is going to end up here and end up in this water resource, it's alarming and it's frankly disturbing.
The city hopes each of us will think about stormwater like Bozeman resident Amber Zander is as she traces where oil-laced runoff is going. Or as Lauren Waterton is. On a shining day on Pete's Hill, she and other volunteers of the organization Run Dog Run are picking up what dog owners have missed in preceding months. Waterton says the key is recognition.
You know, that everything that we leave on the ground eventually ends up in our watershed. And, you know, whether it's our dog's poop or anything else, litter, trash, things like that, that it all affects the water quality here and downstream.
The city's dog stations do make an enormous difference. Here's how much was scooped up and placed in the provided bins in 2016.
So that's Pete's Hill.
The red circles are roughly 6,000 pounds of dog waste. Orange, 3,000 pounds.
You can see where the waste is being picked up is along Bozeman Creek.
Bozeman Creek is beautiful, but it has an E. coli problem from dog waste. There are still too many dog owners not heeding the signs and doing their part.
And we can solve this. Just pick up the litter.
City workers do many different things, often with fascinated audiences, to keep our underground system capable of moving water when it needs to. Here, with a giant vacuum, they're sucking out accumulated pollutants, stuff that got into the streets from our landscapes and driveways. Now they're using a remote-controlled camera into the manhole, guiding it into clay pipes that are up to 90 years old. This is how they identify sections of pipe that are cracking so badly they could fail.
We can get to something before it turns into a disaster.
So the markings you see in your neighborhood are where they go in and replace, say, 20 feet of pipe to avoid water getting out and creating a sinkhole, which would be dangerous and require much greater expense. Each fall, we see the massive leaf pickup operation when crews clear up to 1,000 tons of leaves.
Remember Brian talked about the leaf collection.
What most of us don't see is what gets vacuumed out of the system and disposed of in a better place. Crews aren't judgmental, but they hope residents realize it's impossible to intercept everything headed to the creek. So the health of our streams really depends on us.
Even your grass clippings that you mow and you blow into the curb line, you know, the nitrogen in the grass gets in the creeks, and that's not good for the fish and stuff in the creeks. So just be aware of what you're putting in the curb, because it's going to end up in the creeks, unless I can get to it first.
The city says small actions by each of us will make a big difference for our streams, like sweeping clippings and fertilizer off hard surfaces, fixing that leaky vehicle, and putting in landscapes that allow stormwater to soak in instead of racing to the nearest drain. Even hardscapes, thanks to the innovation of permeable pavers, can allow water to soak in. We can have the benefits of hard surfaces in our patios, driveways, alleyways, and parking lots, while also reducing stormwater runoff. At Sacagawea Middle School, students are envisioning how everything adds up.
Bugs like to live on rocks, like small gravel. But if you cover all that small gravel with sediment, the bug habitat is gone, so the fish lose their food source.
There's a lot of grassy areas, so there's probably fertilizer on them. This is all the storm drains in the area.
With parks laid out on the hallway floor and plastic beads and Tootsie Rolls to symbolize fertilizer and dog waste, they're simulating a rainstorm.
Push down the river. This is not getting treated.
The cumulative effects of that, show really well in today's lesson by bringing, the park pollutants all together.
It's things that when I was growing up in Wisconsin, you didn't talk about.
It's hopeful, he says, thinking that one of these kids may be a future city engineer or mayor of Bozeman. In the meantime, the city asks that we all stay tuned, because it plans to keep talking about how each of us can help reduce the impact stormwater is having on our local streams.
What do you think? Kind of important, isn't it? Like I said, I've had the pleasure to get this assignment to oversee stormwater and wastewater. So I knew everything about the water system, that where we get the water, which is the aquifer. This is really important. We gotta take care of the stormwater and everything. Yes, sir.
Do we have a combined sewer stormwater system? No.
No, it's a separate stormwater system.
Okay.
So one thing I forgot to tell you at the beginning, the other thing is with that graph that we showed at the beginning, the 3 different departments and how water, everything. Do you know what the other difference is that each department has? Each department is an enterprise fund. The amount of money you pay for your water bill stays in the water department. The amount you pay on your sewer bill stays in the sewer. The money you pay for your stormwater stays in stormwater. Been very fortunate that Brian's been very helpful to the stormwater department, his department and the wastewater. The issue has been is that it's been reactive. Is that we go out and take care of the sumps that don't work. It's all reactive. We've set up a schedule here that we're going to be more proactive. You're going to see these guys out there. We're going to bring in a couple more guys to turn around. Their main job will be taking care of the sumps. Over a 5-year period, we'll get to every sump, we'll get to every manhole, we'll get to every inlet and every piping. So it is required per DEQ that we do this. But like I said, throughout the years, we've been just reactive. Yes, sir.
Are there stormwater areas where the water goes to be settled, or does it go to the river?
No, there is some. The annex area right now, out there by the airport, everybody knows that's a big clay area. It doesn't soak in. There's some don't work, so they do have some collection inlet pipes that go all the way down to a big holding pond out there by Airway Boulevard. So there's some like that. There's another one down on South Russell. same thing. It flows off the hill and goes down there by the Albertson Shopping Center. So not all of it goes in sumps. Not all of it. You know, a lot of the stuff on the South Hills is piped to get it off the hill.
The Cattail Pond, the city park.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, you know, stormwater, it's, like I said, provides and maintains infrastructure for both surface and underground movement of water from rain, snow melt, and other weather events, ensures compliance with state, federal, and local laws for stormwater management. The ultimate benefit will ensure ensuring Missoula has clean waterways now and for years to come, which is critical with, and I'll get into how much water the aquifer has and the benefit to the water department. The other responsibility of the stormwater is the levees. Along Clark Fork River, we have some of the levees that stormwater is supposed to inspect. We have to watch the growth on the levees and make sure there's no erosion in that, especially during high flood times and that. We've got to inspect it daily. So make sure nothing's eroding away. This is the footprint. We all have a stormwater footprint. What's yours? Whether someone walks, bikes, rides, bus, or drives in Missoula, everyone has a stormwater footprint. So you think about it, the dogs even, you know, like they showed in the video. So, utility rate, the City of Missoula stormwater utility rate charge pays for maintaining existing stormwater infrastructure such as sumps, detentions, retention basins, stormwater drain pipes, manholes, water treatment devices. The water treatment devices is that the city did a capital improvement down at Karis Park. Basically, a lot of the stuff that on Higgins Avenue, everything went into the storm drains on the Higgins Avenue. They went down in the pipe and out into the Clark Fork River. The improvement that the city did, put this catch basin in, is kind of a Venturi filtration system that collects all the bottles, all the plastic straws, and everything, so it does not go into the Clark Fork River. And then what we do is that the wastewater department goes out there and cleans it out for us. You know, they try to check it every couple weeks, and then they pump it out sometimes once a month. Sometimes they can get 3 months. It all depends on how much trash is on the streets that go down in the stormwater. Dump no waste. This inlet drains to the waterways. It's a local message for a growing global water quality. So, you know, you see people even hosing off their sidewalks, hosing off their driveways and stuff that's got mud and oil and fertilizer and all that stuff. That's all going in. That's either going into the subsurface, like up on the hills, or even downtown. It basically is going into the drains and potentially out into the rivers. So we're educating the kids also between Missoula Water, the Stormwater Department, and the Wastewater Department. We have a partnership with WEN, Water Education Network, that really does an outstanding job going out there and educating the kids. Going out there, and they go out there and do sampling of the water and stuff. So really trying to educate the kids the benefit of all three departments. Yes, sir.
Why is petroleum so high for 15?
Petroleum so high is due to the fact of all the vehicles leaking and you know, we have, I think it was like 4 years ago, I observed somebody they changed the oil in their vehicle and was dumping it in the drain.
Oh.
Yeah. No matter how much signage you do, you try to put in the paper and put ads out or whatever, there's still some people that want to just, they can dump it and get rid of it. They don't understand the importance and what it's doing to the water quality in the aquifer. This is a basic sump design. So basically this is, a lot of your intersections will have this. Basically all you see is next to the curb and gutter is the grate. Basically the water goes down into here, any runoff or whatever, and with the filtration and all the rocks, it leaches into the aquifer. This is the stuff like Brian mentioned, is that fortunately Brian's crews and that go out there and clean it when it's full, when it's not draining. With our plan, the 5-year plan, we're going to end up doing about 420 of them this summer, along with some manholes and that. There's about 794 some of these fixtures and that we have out throughout the city that we're going to be doing this summer. Be more proactive in that. Get it cleaned up. Make sure. Some of the stuff on the South Hills, you got to do every year. You can't do under 5 years because of sand and stuff like that. You know, we have to. But like I said, in the past, it's all been, you know, reactive. Now we're gearing up to be proactive. Now, I'll say love of my life, it's water. Like I said, 22 years experience with this facility. So I've had the pleasure to work for the city for 2 years as of tomorrow. So as you all know, the city acquired it June 22nd, actually took possession June 23rd, 2017. Before that, the previous owners were penalized by the Public Service Commission, and because they sold the company to a Canadian company, and so the Public Service Commission penalized them 6% on the rates. Reduce everybody's water rates 6%. Those rates put it back to the same rates to just before 2011. As of today, we're still operating on those rates. The money we collect, we put back into the system. We maintain the system now. At the end of this summer, since the city took over, we will reinvest and improve the system by $11.2 million. And that's because of everybody here paying your bill. So it's a great system. Provide drinking water, irrigation, fire protection. So I understand the fire department did an outstanding job. You guys all got to see the water, the fire trucks. Just remember, like Brian mentioned about the police department and communication, the fire department would be no better off today if it wasn't for the water department. Remember that. And one of the things is all you guys benefit from it. One of the things that the fire department does is that they periodically, it's like 4 or 5 years, they get an ISO rating, Insurance Institute rating, of how well they can respond with the response time or whatever. Part of that ISO rating is the water system. The maximum amount of points that you can get on the water system is 42. When it was last done, the water system was 38. It scored higher than the fire department. What does that benefit to you? Lowers your insurance rates. So, and part of that, what we're doing is now under city ownership, is that we're trying to be proactive on that too. There is some spots throughout the city that doesn't have hydrants. There's voids. And since the city took over, not only replacing mains, but we're also adding hydrants. We added the water main on Russell Street because there was no fire protection there. So basically from Wyoming Street to the bridge, no fire protection. So that would not have been done under private ownership. It had to be a developer, cost causer. They would not have done that. So same thing Brian mentioned about street cleaning, park irrigation, fire protection, the fire hydrants. Brian showed the street sweeper out there cleaning that. Just as cleaning the streets, the street sweepers helps stormwater and the water department. So this is really good information for you. You look throughout the United States, throughout the world, it is so important, water rights, water availability. On paper, we have 101 million gallons a day worth of water rights. Our pumping capacity with all our wells currently can pump 73 million gallons a day. Our max day in the summer, depends on weather, our max day is about 43 million gallons. So everybody irrigating and washing and stuff. So it's just a little graph. This has where some of the reservoirs are and put location of some of the wells and stuff. But we got 40 groundwater wells, be able to pump 73 million gallons a day, 25 storage facilities. Total storage 10.4 million, 46 pressure zones, 36 pressure reducing stations, 22 booster stations, 331 miles of pipe. Brian mentioned 305 miles of streets, right? Streets that he had to do. We have 331 miles. So, little over 23,000 service connections, a little over 1,400 hydrants. We inspect the hydrants twice a year. We have people say, why? It is recommended per ISO and the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, on dry barrel hydrants, which that's what ours is, there's no water in them, that you inspect them in the spring and in the fall. Make sure there's no damage in the winter from the winter freezing. So, currently, a little over 66,000 customers, and I think actually our population is 78,000. So, all of that has to be maintained. The guys are out, out there doing snow plow and that. We have guys go out to our facilities and plow. They're actually out there chipping through the ice and all the valves. We get a little over 5,000, actually about 5,900 water valves in the system. They're out there exercising. This is the only time we have time to do it because they're so busy with construction and in the summertime. Missoula Valley Aquifer, approximately 12,000 years ago, an ice dam holding 2,000 feet deep Glacier Lake, Missoula within the valley of western Montana burst. Floodwaters moving at 386 million cubic feet per second. That's a heck of a lot of water.
Yeah.
So we have got an outstanding aquifer. We do. It's I won't say it's an underground river, but it is moving. It does move. And it's so vital for us to keep that aquifer and maintain it. That's why it's important with the stormwater. Yes, sir?
Our aquifer seems like it's fairly shallow. You don't have to go through a lot of soil before you hit the aquifer.
Yeah.
Is it a sole source aquifer?
That's all we use is that our wells are pulled out of the aquifer, but what recharges the aquifer is part of the Clark Fork.
Okay.
Some of the snow melt, the rain up in the canyons, up in the mountains, that's what recharges the aquifer. As far away as Bonner, up the Blackfoot towards Deer Lodge, that all recharges the aquifer.
Huh.
Here's a shot of the production department, our East Missoula tank. This is the Benton well. We disinfect. It's not because the water's bad. We end up putting chlorine as basically as a just in case. If someone introduces something into the water, it happened years ago. There was some a sewer line got cross-connected to a customer service line, and but because there was chlorine in the system, and that it took care of it. So that we disinfect. This is a brand new, about 3 years ago, that we called Hagen Wells. This is on the backside of Linda Vista. So that's the inside before it got all painted and set to go.
Dennis, you have a question?
Yeah, really quickly, have you increased the amount of chlorine in the last 10 years? Because I feel like the water tastes worse and worse.
Yes. What happens is that because the demand goes up and down, people use water, more water, less water, whatever. All of our chlorinators are manually operated. So the guys have to go out there and automatically just say, okay, they take a sample and then they turn the chlorine down or they turn it up, depends on the demand. What we've done since last September is that we're upgrading all the chlorinators so that way they hook right into our SCADA system, the computer system, and we can turn around and set that we want a 0.2 or 0.3 milligrams per liter, and then the SCADA system will automatically adjust that. Because we do, there's times, it gets up 0.5, 0.6, and it's like drinking swimming pool water. But, it has to be a balance. It's not only doing that. We leak, it depends on who you talk to. We leak anywhere from 40 to 50% of what we pump. And it's not only on the water mains, it's also the customer service lines. So there's a priority. We're trying to get the mains replaced. When we took over, there was a bunch of booster pumps that were not working. There were some wells not working. We've taken care of about 90% of the booster pumps that weren't working. We took care of just about all the wells that weren't working. And we're in the process on South Avenue. We got 2 wells in one location on South Avenue. We're upgrading them so they pump more. But not only pumping more, we're putting VFDs, variable feed drives, so they'll be more energy efficient. So. Another one, majority of our facilities have backup generators. Not only with the generators, that Brian loves this and his guys love this, is that we have the capability of storing out here 80,000 gallons of diesel fuel. So right now we're a little under 50, I think probably about 45,000 gallons or whatever. But it is all set up and designed that we could run the whole system on generators if it was a fear of Y2K. Something happened, we lost power. We could run the whole system on normal day for over 30 days. Last summer when the city took over that first month, we turned around and there were some of the generators that didn't have fuel. There were some that had leaky radiators and that. Within the first 2 weeks we spent, I think I spent like almost $28,000 of fixing a bunch of the generators and fuel and everything. And that first month, East Missoula was out of power for about 8 hours. Still had water, everything worked perfect. So, another picture of some piping that after it got all painted and stuff. This is a picture of the well that we're pulling. We basically took an old well on the north side that it was in the Superfund site for White Pine Sash. Couldn't use it, but previous owners wouldn't do anything with it. Let the well sit. So we took it out, rebuilt the whole well, the pump and the motor, everything, and we put it in the Willowwood well by South Walmart. That was sitting for 2.5 years because it was broke, and previous owners didn't want to put any money into it. So, with that in there, basically what it did is that part of the system during high demand, a lot of irrigation, the pressure dropped, additional 20 psi in that area. Now that that's all done, you don't see any pressure fluctuation at all. This is programming work. This is Jerry. He's our ace, SCADA person, computer person on everything. So. Yes, they have to go out in the wintertime. They have to go up on top of the hill. They have to make sure everything works and stuff if they get alarms. We know pretty much what all goes on in the system, including if a certain city department pulls off a hydrant too fast. We usually know that, hey, wait a minute, someone's operating the hydrant too fast because you're hammering the system. So that SCADA system all takes care of it. Yes.
So my perspective of a well is a residential well. What do those wells, what is the depth of that well and what do they pump?
Basically, we have various, and I might have a slide on. Anywhere from, we got wells out there that'll pump 500-600 gallons a minute. Our largest well is 5,700 gallons a minute. That's over by the university. It's our
And
Maurice.
how deep is that well?
About 100, 120 feet. There are various depths. Yep. But the one over at Maurice by the university, that pumps 5,700 gallons a minute. Usually when a pump kicks on, a well kicks on, you get the cone of depression. Is that when you start pulling water, it'll pull where your static water level, you'll get your cone of depression. Some of the wells you'll see, even on residentials, they'll drop. Depends on the volume, and that, 10, 15 feet. That one drops only 6 inches. That's the volume of water the aquifer has in that area. Another slide showing where we have some of the wells and stuff. We get asked a lot to wanting locations. Why don't we put where our wells are on the city website? Why don't we put where all our reservoirs are and stuff? Homeland Security says, no, you shouldn't do that. We get people say, well, why don't you put the SCADA system, the computer system that operates the whole system, on the network, city network? Homeland Security, FBI said, don't ever do that. It's a standalone system. There's 2 different systems, so if something does fail, the secondary kicks in, and it automatically alarms. Distribution department. 1,746,529 feet of main, so put it into feet instead of miles. 4632 valves, 1515 hydrants, 987 blow-offs. Just after the city took over, this leak popped up. Depends on certain time or certain areas of the city. You can have a leak, and I've seen it, 600-700 gallons a minute, not surface, not at all. Some of the stuff, this is up on South Hills. Basically what this was an air release that basically, it's a manual air release on the top of the pipe that because of the crown of the pipe when it was installed, you get air trapped in there, which could affect the flows and that. So go out there and operate the manual air release, get the air off the top of it. What happened there because of the soils, the way the soils and that, how hot they are, it ate through the saddle on that, on the main, electrolysis, and it finally just popped. So unfortunately, they never pop at 8 o'clock in the morning at the start of the day. They always pop at 4:30 in the afternoon, or there's been a history, and knock on wood, it hasn't happened since the city took over. They always have main leaks the day after Thanksgiving. Don't know why, but it's not the best time of year. But these guys here, I got guys on call. There's usually 2 guys on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call them up and say, hey, we got a main leak. We don't have our own equipment. We get a hold of the contractor we have a contract with. They come out. No matter what the temperature is, these guys are out there working, just like Brian's guys. The city doesn't stop in the wintertime. We got stuff to do. So they're great guys. These guys make my job easy. Same thing. Here's going through some of the stuff, showing the leak. This is one of our new guys on the right. This is a tap on existing main. Linda Vista tap, same thing. Any existing main, we do the work. So if somebody wants you end up wanting a second service line into your property for something, ADU unit or whatever, you hire the contractor. We come out and do the tap on the main. We don't like anybody else touching the pipe. We end up using our tapping gun and everything because of water quality. We want to make sure it stays clean and it's disinfected. There's a little GIS map showing how the pipelines run. We didn't put the valves on there, try to keep it off. But it's a pretty detailed part of the system is where all the mains in that are. You know, some of the locations are hard to get to. Some of them are in alleys. Some are in bike paths and like here, Brook Street. You know, it's not the best place. So there's a lot of pipe still needs to be replaced. Service department. This is one of the other departments. They take care of they go out on service line leak investigation. So you hear something in your basement like water's running, or these guys go out there and do an investigation and see if it's your service line leaking, or the customer can hear the water main in the street leaking. And that's happened too. They do meter changes, install new meters for brand new construction, turning curb box on and off. You call up and say, I got a plumber coming over to do some plumbing work. A lot of times the plumbers will not operate the curb box. You know, it doesn't cost you anything. You call us up and we go out there and shut the water off for you while you guys do repairs and stuff. It's all part of the fees that you got to pay. You pay in your water bill. They'll do consumption investigations. We get an increase in consumption investigations usually in October. Get snow or whatever, and you look at, well, beginning of September it was hot. Well, we go back 30 days. It's whatever you used 30 days ago in that 30-day period. So, you know, they'll come up and say, I didn't use that much water. The interesting part of the water meters, majority of the water meters, they keep track of what you use. We can go back, 90 days and get hourly readings off the meter of what you use when you use it. It's been a great benefit to some of the customers. We had one customer that turned around and was a snowbird, and they forgot to shut the water off, had a leak. They want to know if we could tell when that leak happened. And we were able to data log the meter and be able to tell them when it broke. They gave it to their insurance company to verify. So we're in the process of upgrading our meters. We put an RFP out this Sunday. We're going to change meter manufacturers. Basically, the benefit's going to be is it's going to help us with the new software and that to help out with our system leakage. And also in the future, once we get fixed base where we don't have to drive around, it'll be a customer portal that you can turn around and look on and see what you use every day. You can turn around and set limits. You're going to go on vacation. You can put it in there on the customer portal. Hey, I'm going to be gone at this time. So if the meter, if you have a leak, it'll send a leak alarm. It'll send it to the customer portal. It'll email you or text message you that you got a leak. So we're hoping to get this thing. My goal is 5 years to get it complete. My other guys, the field guys, oh, don't put that on us. We want 7 or 8 years. Let's go 10 years. I'm hoping we can get it done. You know, we got over 19,000 meters ballpark, so about 20,000. So we're also responsible for the Rattlesnake Wilderness area. We have some dams up there that we're responsible for. We're grandfathered in. It is in the wilderness area. We're allowed to go in there with equipment and do maintenance on the dams and that up there. We are required per our Forest Service permit to do this every year. So we have a very, very good relationship with the Forest Service. We work closely also with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and Tribal Unlimited. So we're in the process of looking at what is the benefit to the community, whether we should keep that, because there is a maintenance cost to it. Whether we should decommission the dams or that. Interesting point is that September, Fish and Wildlife Park turned around and put some sensors up there measuring the flow and the temperature of the water. They could not figure out why the bowl trial were not going all the way up. They found there was about 1.5 miles of the streams up there that the water temperature is too high. So they wanted to know if we could turn around and work with them, and in the summertime, if we can open up the valves at some of the lakes and discharge more water into the creeks and pull it off the bottom of the lakes, which is colder water temperature, to see if that'll work. And we're going to work with them. So it basically will help the bull trout be able to get up farther. And water system improvements. This is what we did this last summer. Okay, so we spent $3.8 million just the last summer alone, taking care of all this. Also along with this is that we ended up replacing the customer service lines at the same time. So you look at how many miles of pipe that we did. We put almost almost a mile of water service lines in also, we replaced. So, like I said, it's an enterprise fund, no tax money, nothing. It's all enterprise. We were able to do this with the pre-2011 water rates. Wastewater department. This is one of the newer departments I'm getting used to. So, overhead picture of the treatment plant. Collecting and treating wastewater generated in the Missoula area, providing operations maintenance of the collection system and treatment system for domestic, industrial, and commercial wastewater. You know, I didn't think much of wastewater department. I figured it's all gravity, big deal. It goes out of a customer's house and gravity fed down into the plant. That's not the case. They have just as many pumps. They have lift stations. They have an engineer come up with a great design years ago to have little lift stations in that in customer's yard. But that's all maintenance. It's all the collection system has to go out there and clean it. You have to go out there and take care of alarms, everything associated with it. So you have the collection, you have the treatment, pre-treatment, the laboratory. They do multiple samples a day of the stuff coming into the plant during the process and as they go out of the plant. And we have to record all that. Composting, treating biosolids and incorporating into the compost products. I recommend if you guys get time, all you got to do is get a hold of Gene Connell out there at the wastewater plant. He loves doing tours of the wastewater plant. He just loves it. He does a great job of it. He's passionate. He's been doing it for so many years. Even being able to show the compost facility and the poplar trees. And the newest thing within the last year, we put a cogen in a generator. Generates power, uses the methane gas. So instead of burning off the methane gas, getting into the atmosphere, that we're burning it in a generator, subsidizing some of the power to reduce the power bill at the plant. It's been working great. These are some of the guys out there. Basically what they're doing is they're jetting some of the sewer mains and that. Unfortunately, some of the mains out there are just not straight gravity. There's bellies in them. There's going down or high spots, whatever. The big main out in front here, they got to do it every month. And basically what happens is that some of the ones up here, they throw rags or something in it, and then they settle right out here. So they got to come out here and try to get it flowing or whatever. So these guys stay pretty active. Along with what they do is they do video inspections. They got a video van that, it's nice that we got a bunch of old clay tile pipe. And it's nice to turn around and go out there and see what's going on with the clay tile pipe. Also, how much roots are growing. It's amazing. Roots will go anywhere. They find a little tiny spot in the pipe, it'll go through it. So basically, this is a septic tank step system, they call it. Basically, it comes out of the customer's house, goes into this tank, and then just the liquid gets pumped out into the sewer. The solids stay in the tank, which the collection guys got to go out there and pump out take the vac truck and pump out the solids. There's about 1,700 of them in Missoula.
In the city itself?
Yes. Yep. Treatment plant, an advanced secondary treatment facility with biological nutrient removal and ultraviolet disinfection. Beneficial reuse using treated effluent to irrigate approximately 85,000 trees, poplar trees. So it's amazing how many there are and how tall they've got and how fast they grow. Gene went out there, I think it was back in October. He was going to try to get up higher. He got on the roof to try to get a picture of the tops of the trees or whatever. He couldn't get high enough. They were growing so fast, growing so good. So using treated biosolids for composting. We're going to experiment this year. The guys are really looking at trying to promote the compost. So we're going to try to do some ads and stuff. One of the suggestions is that you bring all your tree waste and stuff in. Now's a good time at the end of the month in March. A lot of tree trimming gets done. If you got stuff to do and you bring in a truckload, maybe we don't charge you that $7 to bring it in. We'll just take that if you buy a load of compost. So I'll give you credit trying to promote the use of the compost. There's the start of the trees. 2014. And right now, like I said, they're probably, I bet you they're probably a good 24, 28 feet tall. It's amazing how fast they do. One of the other things that we're doing is that...
Something I'm kind of curious about, is that leased property or does the city own that?
We don't own the property, we lease it. Yep, the current owners didn't want to sell it at the time. We do have, I've been talking with them more recently through our leaseholder contractor, is that we want first right of refusal if they decide to sell. So one of the other things we're doing is that Gene and Don and Jason out there at the plant, they've been going to, I let them go to a couple of conferences on wastewater and that. There's a bunch of the wastewater plants throughout the state are doing this. What they're learning is that instead of poplar trees, maybe going with spruce trees or ponderosa pines or whatever. They don't suck up the nutrients as fast. They're easier to sell. They're easier to use for building material on that versus poplar. Garden City compost. Missoula citizens, commercial tree trimmers, and landscapers bring green waste to the facility for a $7 pickup load charge, just $7. Includes tree trimmings, brush, grass clippings, leaves, other organic materials. So basically what they're doing is through here is all the Christmas trees and that, putting in the big grinder and grinding them up. There's our code generator. Set up, basically, like I said, it operates, uses the methane gas from the plant. There is some times of the year we don't produce enough methane. It's not really efficient. But Gene has found out if we just add a little bit of natural gas, works perfect. And it's a lot more efficient and cost savings to run this than paying Northwest Energy for the power bill. Their power bill is about $500,000 a year. I would love to have this, that we can do this for the water department. Our power bill for the water department, $1.5 million a year. And as we all know, is that Northwest Energy goes through the Public Service Commission for rate increases, goes up.
Hey Dennis, how much did that cogeneration facility cost? Do you remember that from an investment perspective?
I thought it was $15 million. I could be wrong, but yeah, I thought it was 13.8 or 15. But it's going to be long term. Like you said, Northwest Energy was just going through a rate increase now, so it's really works good. So biosolids production and mixing, same thing. They take all the biosolids, mix it up with all the wood waste and tree waste and stuff, blend it all together, and then they end up turning around. They have put it in a aeration area. This is it here. This is the new feature this year. Basically, you'll see on here is all these pipes. They have holes in them, so they put all the material on top, and then they have electronic probes that go in that they can read back into the office, and it measures the temperature for the compost. It has to be a certain temperature for the compost to really break down and stuff, and so they monitor it and get it the right temperature. By making it faster, they blow air in it, give the aeration. Basically what they've done, after everything's done, it's good to go, they'll turn around and hook on the end of these pipes, it's the black poly pipe, and they pull it out of the way, then they scoop that stuff and put it in a pile. Get the next batch. So we have 2 more sections like this we're going to be putting in the next couple of years.
Is that what causes the odor out there?
Yes. Yep. And they've done, this eliminates the odor. So, and this was done this last, I think it was completed in September. But when the city took the purchase Eco, there was piles of the old compost there, still there, and old waste. And they've been trying to, and so it doesn't smell until you take a loader and mix it up and haul it off, and then it really stinks. It really stinks. So they have done, like I said, they had a list of, they would get somebody complain of smell or whatever. It's really, really reduced now, just by doing this process, and we get the rest of the process done too, along with the plant. The plant has done some additional upgrades.
So when can we expect there won't be any more odor? Because around Christmas time, it was pretty bad.
Yep.
Were you working out there then?
Yeah.
Is that what?
Yeah, they were moving some of the old piles back here. See all this old stuff back here? So, yeah, it was all, some of it was frozen and that, but they were moving a bunch of the stuff. So I hope within the next 2 years, with all the improvements and that we do, we get rid of all that old stuff. You know, it's not going to smell. You'll get a smell from the wastewater plant too, once in a while, but they've done some improvements on that too, with some additional filtrations and carbon filters and that to try to get rid of some of that smell. It's a wastewater plant. But like I said, these guys out there are so knowledgeable, and they make my job easy because they know what to do. They've been doing it so long. They really try to do their best. They have found that some of the filters at the wastewater plant, the air filters, are supposed to last 6 months. They found that, because that's what the manufacturer says, 6 months to 2 years. Some of them only last 3 months. Then you try to order them, and they say, oh, now we're a couple months out. So that ends up being, so they're getting a good routine and power up, have extras on site to be able to have that so they can go on a periodic maintenance.
Casey.
Right, 1 minute late.
Sure. You're great. Yeah.
Oh, either one of you.
Kate first.
I would like to know about water quality testing, the groundwater and stormwater discharge. Is that handled by Missoula Water, or are you contracting that out?
The stormwater, basically with the stormwater system, the sampling that goes into the Clark Fork River, are the wastewater treatment plant, the lab out there goes around and grabs the samples. All of the Missoula water samples, we collect all our samples in-house. We run some of our samples in-house, the others we take to the certified lab, to the county lab. And also there's samples that we have to, federally samples that we have to do, we have to send it to a different lab.
Can I follow up? Do you send that to the water, the USGS water quality in Denver? Or?
No, we have, it depends on where it is. We do R&D lab is one of them. There's one that we have to do, it's a, I want to say MS, not MS4, it's basically what they do is the federal government, EPA, will turn around and pick some samples they want you to do of potential contaminants in the water. They're not regulated, but they'll turn around and say, we want you to test to see if this has to be regulated contaminant. And there's like only 6 labs in the United States that can do this testing. The last one was down in Phoenix that we sent the stuff to. That's not cheap. You know, we spent over $60,000 doing all these samples. Along with that is we have to do lead and copper sampling. You know, we do over 60 samples throughout that inside people's houses. So unfortunately, we're good. And we report all this every year. You get your consumer confidence report. You'll see it online. It's every June of everything we do with the sampling and that and the test results.
Elena in the back.
Yeah, I'm sure this is like one of those obvious answers to someone who's in water, but why are stormwater and wastewater not connected? Like, it really hit me when you said, oh, stormwater is just getting dumped into the river. And I was like, I guess I knew that, but I didn't really feel it. And after seeing this, I feel it. And I'm like, well, why are the two systems not connected if there's all of this other crap?
A lot of the stormwater is sumps. There's no piping. Where the piping in that is like out in the clay areas, and that goes to the holding ponds and that. If the plant was bigger, and we had all the piping to be able to run out there, you know, it just increased the treatment cost. With the sumps, the cleaning of the sumps, doing like Harris Park, taking care of all the trash that gets in it, just this type of maintenance and that, the water's in good shape to be able to put back in the Clark Fork. And that's why we also test it. That's why DEQ tests to make sure what we're putting back into the Clark Fork.
So just to repeat back to make sure, I mean, basically, you're solving the same problem in a different way.
Yes.
With it. Thank you.
Yep. As long as you keep up on the preventive maintenance. And that's what, like I said, that's what we're really increasing starting this summer.
Thanks.
Jeff and then Nancy.
Yep.
I had read that the largest single-day use of water in the nation is on Super Bowl Sunday when people flush their toilets at halftime.
Yes.
Do you see similar surges like during Riz games or something in Missoula that you got a plan for?
Yeah, you see that. You'll see an increase at Super Bowl. You'll see an increase at New Year's.
Yeah.
You know, New Year's parties and stuff like that. One of the other ones that people don't, you know, some people are fans of, but you do see an increase is during the Daytona 500.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, but yeah, it fluctuates. You do see over at the university area, the Grizz games, when it's halftime, huge. There's a lift station over there that Pat Brooks does an outstanding job. He knows. He looks at that and say, okay, and he has his computer, and sometimes he'll sit down there and watch and see if it's maxing out or not. It's just amazing the amount. Yeah, it's huge over there. So a lot of Grizz fans, a lot of good liquids, I guess.
It's my understanding that we don't put fluoride in the water.
Correct.
Why?
No. Expensive, and it's hard to regulate. the amount that you put in, too much fluoride is not good for you.
Did they used to? Ever? Okay.
The only thing we've ever put into the water is just chlorine. That's it. Yep, just chlorine.
Jerry?
This may be a question for you guys as much as anything, but so when we talk about Missoula purchasing the water system, there's the number that's quoted is $130 million or whatever. And I think that's being kind of finalized onto a long-term financing. Does that figure include the legal fees that were associated with the battle and everything, or is that just the acquisition of the system? Is that, do you guys know?
When we talk about these bigger numbers, that was the total bond capacity that we were setting ourselves up for. Doesn't mean we're going to use all of it as the final legal issues are being finally put to bed. For example, there was one on interest for $20 million. We won that one, crossed it off the list. It goes from 140 down to 120 million right there. Legal fees were included in that.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's that is getting pared down, and we're going into the phase of doing the final refinance at this point, going from short term to long term. So
yeah, so there was a couple of different bonds, revenue bonds, interest bonds that the city got. One was about 125 million, 120 for purchasing. Also, there was a secondary of the $25 million bond to take care of the legal issues. Like Wayne just said, we won the interest one. So last September, we paid 19.9 million back on that bond. We kept 5.1 because we still have 2 litigations going on. So one litigation is the property taxes, and the second litigation is the I think there's still some stuff out there. We have to hold the second litigation is the bad faith.
Okay. So when you're talking about decreasing rates, you're able to decrease rates and cover all that debt service and still have money left over for improvements and repairs.
I just did a presentation for Standard & Poor's a week and a half ago in San Francisco. The plan is we did a 5-year pro forma for Standard & Poor's. We're putting all the money back into the system, pay all our debt payment, everything at current cost, material costs like pipe and everything, without an increase.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and there's nobody else that's ever owned the system, or actually, I know if it was still under Liberty Utilities, because they still own 2 other ones. The year that city took over, they did a 24% increase for Apple Valley Ranchers. Since then, and then they plan to get approved to do a 5% every year. So just last year, the first year of the city taking ownership, you guys saved $1.2 million. So we can't say that we'll never raise rates. I can run the system without raising rates. But what happens is then I have to defer stuff. And then we're no better off than the previous owners. So, like I said, the employees make my job easy here. They look at it like it's employee owned. They do a great job. So.
Okay, we're 10 after 9. Is everybody okay for a couple more questions? Anybody opposed to it? Okay, more. Talk.
I guess going off of that, like, I think after maybe, I'm not sure what week we're on now, but I feel like every week we get told that every service we're talking about doesn't have enough funds. And then to sit here, it's like just like, that you're talking like, oh yeah, we don't have to raise rates. And every other department is like,
jealous
of that. And so is it just that water, I mean, how did water, I don't know. I guess I need to like read a book about how water got tied to a bill that we get sent each month. And
basically, we're an enterprise fund. So like I said, it was all privately owned. It was run through Public Service Commission. They were allowed to make almost up to 10% return on their investment. So you think about it. Our revenue per year, $18 million. A lot of that money, they've made more than 10%. There was $8 to $9 million a year going out of this city for profit.
So
that's why we can do it.
So coming back to what you're asking about, so we're going to talk about this in the last week when we talk about budget, but we have a general fund that our tax dollars go into. But Dennis has been running our enterprise funds, which are outside of our tax base.
Right.
So does that
Well,
clarify?
and so is that different than, I mean, other cities don't work off an enterprise fund, they get sent to the general fund, or is that something that Missoula has been able to preserve?
It's primarily the Montana state law.
Okay.
Is that it has to be enterprise funds and that. But there is some other states or whatever, everything comes out of the general fund.
Sure.
Everything. And the money received from the water bills or sewer bills or whatever can be used on streets.
Yeah.
They can remodel a building downtown or build a new parking lot or whatever.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sarah, did you still have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else? Number 7 of the night.
So you said that a minute ago, you said you don't anticipate an increase without budgeted based on current material costs? Is that what you said?
Yep. If you look at it just recently, Northwest Energy raised their power rates. We spend 1.5 million, sometimes 1.6 million a year on power bills. If they raise it up 5%, that's more cost to us. Pipe cost goes up, chlorine cost goes up, computer stuff goes up, the consumer price index, everything's going up. Basically, we can do less because we got everything is going up in price. Someday we're going to have to. I was making a personal promise to myself, taking it over. I was going to try to hold the rates for 5 years. I'm hoping we can do that, but at the same time, with the mayor wants to do the same thing. We evaluate it every year. If I end up showing that our expenses are too high and we're deferring stuff, we might have a 2 or 3% increase. We have to,
Well,
like I said.
labor too, labor costs.
Yeah, labor costs,
Every year,
insurance,
so.
medical
Labor and
insurance.
materials just seem like they're going through the roof.
Yeah, yep. But our pro forma, with the way we have budgeted and all our plans, we got a short construction season. A difference about, and a lot of this stuff, all of our capital improvements and that is all funded with the revenues. We're not borrowing any money to do it.
I would like you to just quickly address our future billing system.
Future billing, good point, yes. Looking at the different costs of the water bills get sent out every month. Stormwater and wastewater twice a year. What we want to do is, in turnaround, is combine the bill, all three together. So you only receive one bill. So it'll save, right now, the stormwater and wastewater bills that we send out twice a year, some of the commercials quarterly, is about $35,000 just for those couple. That's what it costs to send the bills out. The water department, we spend, to do 25,000 bills a month, we spend $11,000. Why not combine them all? We're still paying the $11,000. We'll share the cost with the other two utilities, save money. You get one bill every month, and I'll have it all broke out there, everything how it is. So instead of getting $30 or $40 sewer bill or $20 or $30 a year stormwater bill or whatever, it'd be a couple of bucks or $3 to $4 a month, whatever your rate is. So.
All right, thank you all for coming. I had this epiphany while I was listening to Brian that I forgot to say this, but when we talk about plowing our streets, and how many of you live on a residential street? Okay, most. So think of this, when it snows and we don't plow your residential street, it is nature's way of traffic calming. And I want to say thank you to Brian and Rick and Chad and Dennis, our superheroes of infrastructure.